Hello everyone, this is Chapter 8, which is our first chapter on early childhood, and it's covering the physical domain of development. Now when we think of early childhood, we think of ages about 2 to 3 up to 6 or 7. So at this age, there's different things that are influencing their growth and their health. So you get hereditary information passed down, from your parents. So whether you're tall or slim, those kind of things could be passed down from your genetic information. Hormones also play a role. So children who are exposed to foods that are injected with a lot of hormones, many times can grow taller and heavier and things like that. Emotional well-being also plays an influence. They find that children who experience extreme stress many times have stunted physical growth, appear years younger than other children that are of the same age. Sleep habits or having sleep problems. We pretty much grow primarily when we're asleep. Our body is in a state of rest and it allows us to go through those growing pains. Well, children who do not sleep very well for whatever reason many times feel more of those pains because they're awake more of the day. Nutrition, again, good nutrition can lead to positive health, and poor nutrition can lead to more negative outcomes. Infectious diseases with young children and childhood injuries. So, if we were in class, I would say, what gender and what temperament do you think has the most injuries? And most people, will say it's boys and difficult temperament. Again, having a hard time with impulse control is a typical thing with young boys. So many times that leads to broken bones and other things like that. Okay, nutrition. Appetite becomes unpredictable. Again, depending on the child, depending on the parenting styles that the child is exposed to. The child may have a wide variety of desires when it comes to food, but they tend to like what's familiar and, again, what they're exposed to. And the environment influences their choices. So they want to imitate admired people. I actually just had an example tonight where I saw children who normally don't go for fruits and vegetables eating apple after apple because their cousin, who they hadn't seen in years, was eating the apple. So it became a bonding experience and something that they did together. Again, it's important to have a repeated exposure to foods, especially at a young age, because children will sometimes just automatically say no to new experiences, and we have to keep pulling them in and having them try those new things. Again, the climate, the parental pressure, all those kinds of things. If children feel a lot of stress, they may not be able to eat, that may restrict their eating. And then poverty also plays a role. Children who have deficiency within their diet nutritionally tend to have more attention difficulties. Many times, diets low in vegetables and good vitamins and maybe high in sugars and fats can definitely lead to the brain lacking the ability to pay attention. They found that children have poorer mental test scores and behavioral problems, ADHD, hyperactivity, aggression, all linked to what the children are eating. So how do we encourage good nutrition? We should offer a wide variety of healthy foods, offer predictable meals as well as snacks. So children know, what's coming, dinner, breakfast, but they also get little fun snacks throughout the day. And, especially when you notice maybe that they're getting a little cranky or low in energy, you should offer small portions. Allow the child to be involved in the serving process. Offer new foods early in a meal and keep trying throughout the meal. don't give up. Children, again, many times will want to be initially negative to new experiences, so we want to keep trying. Keep mealtimes pleasant, include children, sit together as a family, have it be a positive environment rather than maybe the child sitting alone and everyone else is off doing other things, where the child really doesn't want to eat and would rather be involved in those things. And avoid trying to use food as a reward or a punishment. You don't get dessert because of this, or food is food and behavior is behavior, and we want to focus on keeping those separate, because again, many times we mesh together our emotions and eating and things like that, so we want to keep those separate with young children. So now we're going to talk about motor development with early childhood age children. So gross motor wise, we're talking about the feet, the arm, and the torso, so the big, large muscles of the body. So common things that we will see are like single actions, where a child is able to throw a ball, to catch a ball, to maybe steer or to swing, but it takes a little bit longer to combine those actions, like to sit on a bike and actually steer and pedal. But sometimes you do see very young children who are able to combine their actions based on how much experience they've had with using those muscles. So what do we see change-wise? You can see age 2, age 3, age 5, and 6. So children's abilities are becoming more advanced as they get older. And I have a video on Blackboard that I'd like you guys to view regarding gross motor development. So make sure after this PowerPoint you go back and you view those videos. I have one on gross motor and one here on fine motor. So fine motor is the smaller body movements, the hands and the fingers. And the most common examples we see in early childhood are through self-help skills. So when a child is starting to become independent and do things on their own, that's really going to utilize a lot of fine motor development. So getting dressed, buttoning, zippers, even putting on socks, things like that, using utensils, tying their shoes, those take small motor development. And also drawing. And again, we see variations. Here we see a picture of a child who's probably more like kindergarten age. But, children will start with things that are meaningful to them. And as you can see in this picture, it looks like this child really likes shapes. Circles, triangles, rectangles, stars. And that's represented in the picture. And they become more realistic as children get older. Handedness, usually we see that at around 1 year old, whether a person is right-handed or left-handed. And research has shown 90% of Western nations, people are actually right-handed. It's affected by experience. They say, position in the uterus can play a role. Also practice, if someone is training you from an early age to utilize a certain hand over the other, then of course that becomes something that you're used to and you've been exposed to. And early damage can lead to a shift in handedness. If a young child has brain damage, actually sometimes the brain takes over and you'll actually see a shift from them maybe being right-handed to left-handed. But they don't really find any different. There's no developmental problems. People who are left-handers, even though they're only about 10% of our population here in, the U.S., they still excel in both verbal and math skills. It's really not connected to your intelligence. So here's some changes we see. And for your preschool anecdotal records, you need to talk about motor development. And you're able to talk about either fine or gross motor. And here's some very specific examples depending on the age group that you're looking at. So remember, for the preschool, you can do 2 years old to 5 years old. So this would be a great chart. And again, you can talk about whether a child is meeting these developmental milestones, or maybe a child is delayed in these, or maybe they're advanced, and you can relate to that. And if you're going to refer to this chart, you can just go ahead and refer to the Burke textbook. That's where it came from. There's also individual differences in our motor skills. Seems pretty obvious, but children who are more tall and muscular are typically able to move quickly, whereas if we're shorter or stockier, we tend to move slower. So we also see differences in sex. We see boys tend to have skills of force and power due to being born with more muscle mass, and so many times being able to jump farther, run faster. But girls, they physically mature a little bit faster than boys do. So what we find is they tend to have an edge in combining their gross motor skills, like balancing and foot movement, and they have an edge in fine motor skills. And again, many times that is reinforced by teachers, parents. Boys should be outside playing and being active, while girls could be, sitting and drawing and working more on their fine motor, or, helping out in the house. So through many times our gender roles, we push through children, and that's found in their motor skills, and we see that expressed. So children will develop their motor skills just through everyday play. They have found that formal lessons really have little impact, but children need at least 60 minutes of unstructured play every day. A chance to be creative, to, choose their own play patterns. But daily routines support fine motor. So, getting up, getting dressed, tying shoes, using utensils, brushing their teeth, those kind of things. So we want to provide appropriate space and equipment and promote a fun and positive attitude. Again, if we want girls outside also developing their gross motor skills, we need to be positive about it and have it be something that everyone's doing, getting everyone active and everyone involved. So please now make sure you go back onto Blackboard, you watch the videos on gross motor and fine motor development, and you create a journal response regarding an example preschool activity that you would maybe implement where you could utilize development of both fine and gross motor skills for the children. So go ahead and go back to Blackboard.